you would like to introduce yourself. DPI, thank you for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Good morning. My name is Carrie Bowe, and I am the WISE Continuous Improvement Manager on our customer services team. I frequently work with our choice schools, and I really welcome you to our session today to help us prepare for the spring snapshot. I do have other colleagues on the call who will be supporting with the Q&A. So if you hear Jeff Keener or Heidi jump in, they're here with us too, and we appreciate their support. So we are meeting today because we are working toward the snapshot on May 21st, so less than a month away. This snapshot is not as robust as the December snapshot. We don't collect as many data elements, but it's really important because we're connecting these demographics to the assessment data that you have from your forward exams and state exams. These are the data elements that are included in we call it the demographic snapshot or the spring snapshot, and we're going to discuss these in length today. This is the why we collect the data. Essentially, for our choice schools, we collect the data for accountability, for that public transparency, the data that is generated from your SIS to WISEdata and captured in our application. We use that to create the accountability report card in conjunction with the Office of Educational Assessment and the Office of School Accountability. So the data flow, the way that this works for the snapshot is first it begins with you and your SIS. So you are entering your data within your SIS, or which also the acronym stands for Student Information System, SIS. And from there, you would work to establish a connection through an application we have called EdFi Credential. You would push that to WISEdata Portal. In WISEdata Portal, we have something called a validation screen where we run through your data and we throw data quality checks at you. So those would be in the forms of errors or warnings. And then from there, we take that data and we snap it for reporting purposes, and that's what's generating your accountability report card. We want you to go through this process of correcting things in your SIS, pushing it over to WISEdata, checking your WISEdata to see if errors and warnings have been resolved, and working through this process prior to that May 21st date so that your data is clean and ready and accurate. This is another visual of how the data flows from your SIS to WISEdata Portal. The data is stored in something called the data warehouse, and then goes into our report card. So here's our goals for our snapshot. We are really focusing on your demographic data. We want your enrollment data to be accurate as well. But we want you to be very aware of the race, ethnicity, birth date, all of those pieces to be accurate. And just know that if we are missing those pieces or if they are inaccurate, that's certainly going to impact the snapshot and your accountability report card. So let's walk through the steps of how we can prepare for the snapshot. Step one being your vendor system. We're in the spring of the year. Hopefully your latest version has already been installed. If not, if you feel like there needs to be some updating, please do so now rather than the day before the snapshot. We don't want you to be stuck with a SIS that's not operating fully. Making sure that everything's in place so that your data can be reported from your SIS to WISEdata Portal. Work with your customer service in your SIS. If you don't know where a window lives, if you don't know why the data is not coming over, our DPI team can do as much as we can, but unfortunately we aren't nuanced with every SIS, and we certainly can't replace your student information system customer support. So know how to get help from that student information system. So what you'll need to do is In step one, we're just doing those basic steps that we've already discussed before. You're submitting your data from your SIS, pushing it to WISEdata portal, and then looking into WISEdata portal, the error message, the warning messages, those are called validation messages. And we also have something called data quality alerts. Something that I would like to highlight on this slide deck here, that bottom point is missing data cannot be validated. I'm going to walk you through the tools of how to verify that all of your data is coming over. We do not know your enrollment counts intimately. We do not know your demographic information of your student body. You do. So you will know if something's missing using our tools. Unfortunately, if you do not push data over, if there's an enrollment that is missing, that is not something that can be corrected later on through the data inquiry process. So we can't rectify missing enrollments. We can't generate enrollments that were not there. We can rectify demographics that were incorrectly reported connected to an enrollment, but we can't make an enrollment that wasn't there, if that makes sense. So look at your enrollment numbers, make sure everybody's accounted for. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through the home screen. We do have a really nice mini tutorial linked in the slide deck. This will be the slide deck, as well as the questions and answers from today's session will be available for you. But let's walk through the home screen together today. We updated WISEdata portal. I don't know if you've been in there recently, but the homepage looks a little different. And when you log into WISEdata, so you go to WISE Home and you have the list of all the different applications like WISE ID, SAFE, School Directory, you're going to select WISEdata portal. From WISEdata portal, you are automatically prompted to the homepage. The homepage is so important because it's going to tell you if your data is flowing from your SIS to WISEdata successfully. I want to honor your time, and your time best spent is going to be with data that is flowing. I do not want you to sit in your SIS and click around and try to get things to be cleared, errors corrected, warnings resolved. If the data is not flowing, it's never going to be corrected or resolved because there's going to be something broken in between your SIS and WISEdata. Well, how do I know if my data is flowing, Carrie? Well, let me tell you, we have this really nice color-coded system. Notice the school year label at the top. So this is our current school year. You would see your SIS listed here. So in this case, this school is working with 3 different student reporting systems. So they've got a student information system, and they also have a special education reporting system. You'll see your SIS, your student information system, listed here, and then you're going to see something called a failure rate. The failure rate is indicating how the transactions, how successful the transactions were coming from your SIS to WISEdata portal. We want to be in the green, okay? That's what we're looking for. If you have transactions that are in the green, we can feel safe that data is flowing well. If transactions are in the orange or the red, we need you to contact your SIS. We need you to reach out to your student information system. So if you're taking notes for today's session, note number 1 is going to be go into your homepage and look at the color, look at the feedback of the failed transactions on your homepage. We want it to be green. If it's not green, you need to reach out to your student information system and communicate that you have data flow issues. Now, we also have the previous school year listed here. We're not going to get really in depth into that today because that's not what our focus is on, but this fall, you're going to be using that previous school year feedback as well because you're going to be working in 2 school years when you're preparing for the December snapshot. But we're in May, and I know you're counting down. I know we're happy to be in May. So May snapshot here, this is how you would dig in if you have that orange or red color with a lot of failed transactions. If you wanted to know more, if you're a tech savvy individual, and you wanted to see, well, what transactions are failing, you can click, it is interactive on your homepage, you can click on that and it'll show you the transactions within the last 24 hours for you to do some more research. Just so you're aware, your vendor can see this as well. We have a vendor tool built for the vendors to manage our DPI application, the WISEdata reporting, so they can go in and see what's failing as well. In this circumstance, the WISEdata status, we want to see that your data is up to date. So we give you feedback on if the data has been in sync. Well, what that means is we have all the schools in the state that are reporting to WISEdata. When they submit their data from their SIS to WISEdata, they're put in a queue, a line, for us to do that data quality check, that validation, to look through their data, see if there's anything conspicuous that we can say error, inconspicuous, we throw a warning at, we want your eyes on it to review accuracy. Now, if you are waiting in the queue, your data would not be up to date. You would be waiting in the queue. So in this circumstance that you can see on the screen, their data has been validated. We have an orange button on the homepage that says queue import and validation. You would want to hit that button and you would be brought to a better place in the queue so that your data is validated sooner.
Carrie, there's a
Yes.
question out there wondering, what if there is no color? It's just gray.
Okay, that is definitely a concern. We want you to submit a help ticket and contact with DPI and also a help ticket with your SIS, because that would make me think that you don't have any data flowing.
I think, Carrie, if you go back one slide, that's what she's referring to, where it says out of sync and that header is gray, but it also says data is up to date.
Is that what you're referring to, or are you seeing gray here? You would want to look at the label. Is it labeled WISEdata API transactions, the vendor communication status?
She's saying it's in both places, Carrie.
Okay, yeah, definitely a big red flag. So this is like a 911 emergency for you. You don't have data flow. So submit a help ticket to DPI and also a help ticket to your student information system. Who is your SIS?
TADS
TADS. Okay,
and
great.
Educate.
Okay. We will work with you and TADS Educate and make sure that we get that rectified. So I'm so glad that you went and checked your homepage. Great work. That's the first piece, is making sure you have data flow. If you don't have data flow, you're not ready for the snapshot, certainly.
Looks like Fax has the same thing.
Okay, so anyone that has a gray screen where you should be seeing color, with Fax, I would suggest that you do a manual push. Is TADS Educate automatic or manual? I don't remember. I would suggest try to push your data over from your SIS. See if that is going to give you any feedback, if any color is going to populate on the homepage. See if data pushes over. But certainly be proactive and submit a help ticket with DPI and your vendor.
The other question is someone has PowerSchool. They say their failure rate shows a 0%, but they're wondering if it's just that it hasn't updated recently.
So you can see the last transaction listed here. That would tell you that was the last time your SIS pushed data over. So under the failure rate, there's a last transaction timestamp. For those Fax customers, your data is not going to come over automatically. It is a manual process to push that data over. Now, I can't speak to TADS Educate. If anyone else has TADS Educate and knows if you have to manually push the data over, please pop that in the chat. But you have to go through some clicks to get the data to come over. Other SIS vendors do have that automatic push. But for Fax, for sure, you need to manually be pushing it over. So that may be why your data is not updating.
Couple things in the chat. Fax SIS, Mandy says, now has an automatic sync option available. That's good. And Matthew, Matthew says that he has Power School and he's also just seeing gray.
Okay, so Matthew, definitely try to push that data over. I know there's like a report. It's like data exchange, WISEdata data exchange from Power School, I think. You're gonna want to run that, see if you get any feedback on the homepage. If you're not getting any feedback on the homepage, then you certainly have a data flow issue. Anyone having a data flow issue seeing gray, try to push data over. If you're not getting feedback, if you're not seeing in WISEdata that there was a failure rate or last transaction, you're just getting gray, you need to reach out to your student information system, indicate that you don't have data coming over, and also submit a help ticket to DPI. And
Carrie, what would be,
can we throw the help ticket? And please don't just submit a help ticket to DPI, because we're literally going to tell you to submit a help ticket to your student information system. But if someone on CSC could throw in the help ticket link in our chat. Sorry, Carol.
no, I was just wondering, how frequently would you expect that last transaction to be updated? If they're saying they haven't had any changes.
Right. So for the schools that are set up with automatic data transactions from your SIS to WISEdata, essentially every time you take attendance, that's a new value that you're entering. And so that would update. Now, would it update overnight? That's according to your SIS. Would it update real time? That's according to your SIS. Is there like a scheduled, sometimes they have like a scheduled 3 a.m. batch where they push over the data each night, or some of them it's real time. Every time you hit save and there's a new data value, it updates. So those schools that have to manually push data over, however, it's the last time that you tried to move data from your SIS to WISEdata portal. That timestamp would reflect when you were doing the moving.
Okay, so a good question from Matthew. He was a Power School or is a Power School customer. He says his last transaction date was April 8th, 0% error rate, but nonetheless, it's still all gray. What does that mean?
Okay, so I think that the color, I'm not in the WISEdata itself, but it's within the last 24 hours. So you can notice here, it says this section provides a list of vendors used by the district. The goal is to alert you the status of the specific vendor's communication in the last 24 hours. So if it's been over 24 hours, I think that it goes gray.
Okay, so in that case, a lot of people are going to have the gray because it hasn't been updated within 24 hours.
If they're a school that it manually has to be pushed over and they haven't updated in the last 24 hours, I'm thinking that that's the scenario. It would be great. But if you're a school that has automatic data pushes and that timestamp is reading, you think that it should be coming over automatically, but it's reading from a couple weeks ago, that would indicate a data flow issue. So it's really important that you are familiar with how your student information system works and how frequently you can expect the data to be pushed over. There's a lot of nuances here. All right, let's move forward. Good conversations we're having. So I want to talk to you about our data quality tab in WISEdata portal. We're going to be spending a lot of time on how do I know if the information I'm submitting is accurate? Now, some things that you would see at the top of the data quality tab would be the 23-24 school year. Make sure you're working in the current school year. Right on the top, directly on the top left, you see the total students that you're reporting. And you can see if you have errors or warnings living in WISEdata portal. This is really if I could put another fireworks and some highlights around this tool, when you scroll down on the data quality indicators, there are graphs here. These are the nicest tools for choice schools to use to verify the accuracy of what's being received. Because unfortunately, we went, let's say we have green data flow, feeling good. We don't have a lot of errors and warnings. We're feeling confident. Now, what we'll find is when we get into the data quality, when we're clicking through these graphs, you'll find that there's discrepancies in your demographics that are being reported. Not all the students are populating for some reason. You'll have a missing grade level. And this is how you would verify that accuracy of what's being received. Now, first, I want you to look at, it's going to default to the enrollment current. So notice we have enrollment current, and it's going to default to students by grade level. At the bottom of this graph, it's going to give you a cumulative total. So it's saying that we have all of our 7,132 enrollments here. This is such a nice tool because you can eyeball each grade level to say, oh my goodness, only 330 pre-K students, which I'm going to use a different example. Only 257 K4 students, I should have 330. So right away, you know that you're missing enrollments, okay? Now what we're gonna do is, we're gonna leave it at enrollment current, and you would go through the measure, this drop down, and you're gonna go through each of these demographics. If you are taking notes, your next action plan is to go through the data quality indicators and go through each of the measures. You're gonna do students by disability status. We're gonna talk about that more. We're gonna talk about students who are EL. You're gonna look at that. You're gonna look at students by race, ethnicity, students by economic status. Make sure that cumulative total at the bottom is still consistent each time you're going through each demographic, because this is where we find inconsistencies and gaps. Now, I said I was gonna, here's a screenshot of the Q import and validation. If you are finding that your data is out of sync, or after you make changes in your SIS, you're gonna hit that Q import and validation, and then that'll jump your line in the queue. I would suggest you use the notify me button. Now, each of these drop downs in the measure, students who are working, students according to disability status. If you have a choice student who historically within the public system through an IDEA eligible IEP was receiving services, you would report that student's disability in your SIS. If you have a student who you know was working through an IEP through a public district, you would report that disability in your SIS. Now, if you are working with a public district through an ISP to service the students, you would also report that disability. SNSP students, the disability would not be reported here. If you are a school receiving title funding for students who are English learners, be sure that your English learners count is accurate in that dropdown. That's another very important demographic. And another important demographic is students' economic status. Please do not tune out to the economic status if you do not participate in a school lunch program. So if you're not participating in National School Lunch Program or Community Eligibility Provision, CEP, you still need to report a student economic status. Is the students, for a student to be considered, I'm gonna have everyone engage in the chat. Get your chat fingers ready, okay? If a student is eligible to participate in the choice program, are they considered eligible to be receiving free and reduced price lunches? Yes or no?
Carrie, while we're waiting for people to respond to that question, there's a good question here wanting a little bit more explanation about why the students that are SNSP aren't reported as having a disability here. They would be if indeed they're also in that category of having an ISP or an IEP that the district, your LEA, knows about, right? If they've never been serviced by the district, if they've always been in a private school, they maybe were evaluated and had an IEP developed, and that
Correct.
qualified them for the SNSP, but that doesn't qualify them for this data point on the report card at this moment in time. And
Correct.
just for future knowledge, there's definitely some plans to make some changes on that moving forward. But right now, that's not the case.
Right, because of the way the federal funding works and our reporting connected that federal funding, the students who are SNSP may have had an IEP developed to qualify them for SNSP, but that wasn't implemented, so it's not IDEA eligible. And so you wouldn't report that. You would report that in the SNSP portal. We want that there, but not in WISEdata. Good questions. There was a question about schools ever getting, choice schools ever getting that. It has been a topic of conversation. There's a lot of funding needed for, as you know, you're reporting things in OAS right now and WISEdata. And there was a grant that we were working off of that unfortunately expired. And so we have to wait for it to come around for us to be eligible again. But right now we would, in years to come, in future plans, when I started 6 years ago, I was already like, please make this happen. We don't want you to have to report in 2 different systems, OAS and WISEdata. Ideally, in the future, the far future, we would like to merge that. And then we would also need more funding to have WISEdata available for choice schools. So these are all conversations. Unfortunately, as a state agency, we don't have a lot of funding to make all this happen. Okay, so the question is, so do not report a student receiving services. Where to go? So do not report a student receiving services at a public school. Incorrect. So you do want to report a student who is receiving services from the public district. And also the public district will be reporting that non-primary enrollment in WISEdata as well. So don't be offended when you see the district reporting on your student as well. They are required to report any services that they're delivering. And so they would be reporting that service as well. Yes, we have, if anyone on our CST could find the choice special ed data element FAQ and send that about how we're reported, or SNSP. Yeah, we can send you. It's on our DPI webpage. Okay, so I see, I'm proud moments. My choice schools are so correct. The economic status is not, for the choice program, is not the same as the economic reporting income guidelines for a student to be eligible for free reduced price lunch. They are different. So you need to, as a school, if you're not participating in any sponsored lunch programs through National School Lunch Program or community eligibility provision, you would need to use an alternate mechanism. So we have something called the alternate household income form on our site. We can also throw that in the chat. The alternate household income form is basically the parents are telling how many members are in the family and what range of income they're receiving. So you can determine if they're considered economically disadvantaged or not, because that's a true false, yes, no, if they're economically disadvantaged. And then if you're not participating in any sponsored lunch program, like National School Lunch Program or CEP, you would use unknown for the food service program eligibility. Now, if you are participating in NSLP or CEP, usually use direct certification, and it's a nice streamlined process to get that economic status data. But that economic status data is really important to your accountability report card. So get that, make sure your numbers are accurate there. If the enrollment numbers are different from total student choice number on this screen, assuming that is okay, if we had 2 choice students withdraw this semester, there are no data quality. Right, Dawn. So we see enrollment current. Now, if you are seeing Okay, so what you're seeing on the top left is that total. That would be the cumulative total on the data quality. Now, if you're seeing on the data quality indicators for the total enrollment current, if that's different and accurate, reflecting that change in 2 students leaving, yes, exactly. Good question. All right, let's keep going. So we talked about using the enrollments current. Now, another thing that I want you to eyeball really quick, this would be more towards thinking about end of year cumulative totals. Use that attendance dropdown. After you looked at your measures and you looked at your students accordingly to if they're English learners, their disability status, their race ethnicity status, their economic status. You went through all those pieces. Also eyeball your attendance data. This will be actual days of attendance versus possible days of attendance. Make sure that that's coming over accurately as well. Some of these drop downs are going to be eliminated for choice schools because they are not applicable, like the October 1st and the discipline. We're going to get rid of those because we don't need you to be trying to figure out what you're supposed to be looking at. After you make changes in your SIS, we talked about the Q import and validation. And that lives on both the validation messages screen and the home screen. Okay, and from there, we are going to move into step 2. We're going to talk about the validation messages. So we're kind of working down the line. We were on home page, we went to data quality, and now we're in the validation messages tab within WISEdata portal. When you are in the validation messages tab, that's when you're reading all the good news, all the errors and warnings. What you would do is you would dig into the errors and warnings. There's a little caret here. So we see the error code. You're going to expand that caret and you're going to see which student enrollments this validation message is affecting. Now, when you expand that student enrollments, there's something called the student details screen. When you expand that little caret, you would click on you'd see your student's name, the enrollment that the error is affecting, and then you would click on student details. And from the student details screen, you're able to dig in. So let's say if you looked at your data quality graph according to race ethnicity, and your enrollment totals weren't accurate. You were missing a few students. Well, in your validation message screen, you have an error 6802 saying you're missing race. So this is where you would have the really great insight. I need to go into my SIS. The student's WISE ID would be listed here. All the student information is listed here. You would go into the SIS, update that race ethnicity information and push it over. You would see the enrollment numbers rectify or be accurate in those data quality graphs. And then this error should go away after you hit the Q import and validation, that orange button here. And you would see on the home page, data is up to sync. If it's not in sync, your error is still going to live here. And the enrollment numbers aren't going to be accurate. It's still all going to be inaccurate. Okay, validation messages. We want you to prioritize these critical errors first. So notice we've got the red exclamation marks. Work on those first, please. Those indicate a severe error that will greatly impact your snapshot data. Then work on your errors. So make sure that data is submitted correctly. And then the warnings are DPI throwing a flag at you saying, hey, this doesn't look right to us. We want you to verify the accuracy. So what we need you to do is go through, review the warning, look to see if it's accurate. And you can acknowledge the warning if it's accurate, if it's indeed throwing a flag at you and you're saying, yep, this isn't right, we need to correct it. Go into your SIS, make the corrections, push it over, and then that warning will go away. We do the validation overnight. And so if you are working late in the afternoon and you call it a day, typically you can come back the next day and see that your data should be in sync with what you pushed from your SIS to WISEdata has been validated. But otherwise you can use that Q import and validation orange button so that you can jump the line and not have to wait.
Carrie, there's a question out here wondering if there's a way, Beth is wondering if there's a way she can find out their snapshot report card from December.
Okay, so your snapshot report card from December. Unless you used the exports, which I have pulled up on the screen now, and pulled your data from December, there we don't necessarily have a way to go back in time. We're going to show what's being reported currently. Now, when the report cards are released, there's a soft release where they give the schools the report cards initially before it's submitted for public viewing. And I want to say that's in October. There's a short window where after the Office of Educational Accountability, after they, through SAFE, that when we talked about when we log into WISE Home, there's a list of all those applications, school directory, WISEdata, WISEID, there's SAFE, the secure file exchange. You would be able to go in and review your school report card. Now that school report card is going to be using the year's past data, but you can review that for accuracy and work with the Office of Educational Accountability. If you're finding discrepancies, if you're finding that your data was inaccurately reported, you can work with them to try to correct that. But as of right now in WISEdata, we don't have historical data living in here. We have the current data. So if you want to save what was submitted from December, you would have to put that on your list of things to do. Go into this exports tab in WISEdata and download these spreadsheets so that you have what was living in your WISEdata as of December. Good question.
There's a student Stephanie has where the ethnicity is incorrect, but she doesn't see that marked on the SIS. Where does she look to correct it?
Okay, so that sounds like a data flow issue from your SIS. If you have that marked correctly in your SIS, but it's reading incorrectly in WISEdata, the SIS vendor has an endpoint in their programming. So when you hit this in your SIS, it should read this in WISEdata portal. It sounds like there's a discrepancy in what is coming from your SIS. That endpoint is not coming through correctly to WISEdata portal. So that's typically the SIS's programming. You need to reach out and tell them the WISEID of your student, what you're reporting in your SIS, and what's being reported as an endpoint in WISEdata portal. Good question.
The next question is from a brand new choice school. When does their WISEdata have to be set up?
Welcome. I hope that you registered for your August 1st onboarding with WISEdata with me. We need your data up and ready to go by the first day of school. And I will walk you through that. We have an August 1st training. It's a 3-hour training from 9 to 12 to get all of the pieces set up so that your school can have WISEdata going. But there's a lot of work on your end where you need to have all of the student information submitted in your SIS. We're doing the setup of WISEID, the EdFi credentials so that you can get your key and secret from your SIS to WISEdata talking. We're setting up user access. So lots of big pieces that are not intuitive. So we offer this training because a lot of schools couldn't do it on their own. And so I was brought on board for our customer service team many moons ago. And I said, hey, we're going to do this all together. We're going to work together as a team so that you don't have to sit and click alone and try to figure this out. And we want to value your time and your energy. So be there, please, August 1st, 9 to 12. It should be in your email inbox. I certainly can And the parental education options team is supposed to be sending out another email to that same group of schools, but certainly throw your information on the chat and we can get that to you. Okay, so use the exports tool in conjunction with your data quality. So let's say that you are looking at your students by race, ethnicity, and you're missing 100 of your enrollments. Okay, well, how would you know who's missing? You would use your data quality exports. You would use your WISEdata exports. So you would pull the specific export. So you could certainly do student demographics if you're working with race ethnicity data to figure out who's missing. So maybe it's certain families, for whatever reason, the data is not coming over. There's an endpoint not reading correctly from your SIS to WISEdata portal. Or maybe you see the student listed, but just an empty race ethnicity. So then you would be able to go into your SIS and find, oops, human error, we forgot to enter that. So use these exports to do digging into your data. If you're finding that you're missing data or there's inaccurate numbers, use these spreadsheets to walk through where that data is inaccurate and what student it is tied to or what grade level it is tied to. WISEdata quality alerts are going to be live. We have these orange alerts when you log into WISEdata portal. And we send these to you to help you prepare for the snapshot. They are specific to your school. And so we want you to click on that Learn More button, and we're going to show you some details. Okay, it's going to tell you this is the way that the alert would populate on your screen. It's going to tell you what the system alert is, and then it's going to tell you what data would be affected. So we want you to read all of the school alerts. We want you to read through all of these, go into your SIS, make the necessary corrections, and then you can acknowledge the alert. So you do need to be a primary or secondary contact in WISEdata to acknowledge this alert. But once you acknowledge the alert, it is not going to go away. We are not getting that instant gratification, folks. It's not like the Q import and validation when we, will my error go away? And then it does, and then you're like, yes, I did it. We don't get that with our data quality alerts. They're scheduled. So it'll say acknowledged, but it's still going to hang out on your screen until we take them down on a schedule. So please don't be upset. Don't think you did something wrong if you acknowledged your alert and it's still living at the top of your screen. It's gonna be up there for a minute while we're going through our data snapshot preparations. The data warehouse has those on a schedule. So with that being said, focus on the demographics, focus on English learners, that data. Focus on race, ethnicity, focus on economic status, focus on disability status, and look at that data quality alert at the top of your screen.
Carrie, we have several questions coming through.
Sure.
Wondering if one of the DPI folks could put if there's a link to that August 1st training invitation, or do you have to get that via email?
Yeah, so that is not open to all of our choice schools. Not that we don't want all of you to join. We do have monthly training available to all schools. I think it's the first, is it Tuesday or Thursday of every month? The new user training. So we have
Wednesday.
Thank you.
And it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, how timely. Thank you, Jeff. So we do have new user training every month, first Wednesday of every month. So whether you're new or returning and just need a refresher, if you have new staff coming, we want you to attend that new user training. And it's typically a nice, small, intimate group, so you can get all your questions helped, one-on-one help. Adam, our team trainer, is the gentleman who facilitates that. So come on, if we could throw that in the chat as well. Come on out, join our new user training tomorrow, Wednesday. I think it starts at 1.
But if this is a brand new school,
If it's a brand new school, so if you're just starting the choice reporting process in 24-25 school year, that is the August 1 training. And that is going to be sent via email because those needs for onboarding a school are very different. It's not going to be a value to your time if you're a returning choice school.
Carrie, because several schools that are new need more planning time in their world and their calendar, can you send that notice to those schools early?
For the August 1?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I sent it the beginning of what is this month? April. So hopefully it's in your inbox, Mr. Chuck Moore. I know your name.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, so hopefully it's in your inbox. I'll send that out after today's conversation again, so that it's at the top of your inbox and fresh in your mind.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yes, of course. And I'm gonna tell you that it's a novel of an email. And the training link is at the bottom, so that could be why it was missed. So maybe I should use hindsight and put the training link at the top. But we want that novel of an email is really important so that you can think about how to get your parent portal or your enrollment paperwork set up prior to the school year, collecting all the necessary information so that you're not scrambling. School's already started and you're saying, oh, we didn't know we need that. I want to give you that foresight.
another question out here that is really a great one, I'm so glad Stephanie asked it, is regarding the economic status. So all of her students are marked with no ELP code. So what do they do?
Okay, so this is according to our students who are English learners. Good question. All of my students are marked with no ELP code. I do not believe we administer ELLs. So I just acknowledge this morning, is just something I need to. Good question, Stephanie. So I'm going to come out to the DPI site here. Now, our students that are enrolled in the private schools are eligible for services and funding as they are developing their English language proficiency. For choice schools that have students enrolled in their school who are English learners, we want to give your classroom teachers the resources and support that they need to instruct our students who are English learners, because it's a different approach of scaffolding and supporting our students who are English learners. Unfortunately, sometimes there's a stereotype that students who are English learners, maybe it's a will deficit, like, oh, they just don't want to do it or they're not comfortable. But unfortunately, it's oftentimes a skill deficit. Having conversational English skills is very different than reading, writing, speaking, academic English in the classroom. And we want to support our educators. And so we have something called the English Learner Policy Handbook. There's title funding available. We can connect you with the ombudsman here. We have title consultants that work with private schools, so we can help you coordinate with your public school district. This time of year is the time of year for title consultations, okay? The title consultation is where the school district meets with the private school within their district zone, or I'm failing on whatever, within their district boundaries is the word. And they would discuss the needs within the school, the title funding that has been allocated to that public school, and what services they can provide to your student body. Unfortunately, something that we're hearing very consistently is that title conversations on reading and math are easily discussed, planned for, services provided. Title services for our English learners, not discussed, not planned for, not provided. Because it's a conversation that is not coming up. Our public districts aren't really sure on what the services that they can deliver that are available. They're not confident. Private schools aren't even aware that that's a possibility, aren't asking that question, what can you do for my English learners? What kind of services can we provide? So we as a state agency need to do a better job in building those conversations, building that confidence, visibility, knowledge, but we need you to be asking your districts that so that their title representatives are reaching out, asking for support, because we can't go through each one by one school district and say, do you need help? Do you need help? So have these conversations. If you decide, yes, we have a need in our school, we have English learners, please don't let it just be, oh, do we have a lot of it? And then we're going to reach out and help. Wisconsin is a very segregated state, and our students who are English learners and our students of color are slipping through the cracks. And we have very poor proficiency for our students of color and for our students who are English learners. So even if you have a few, one or two of students who are English learners, we want you to access these services. We want to support your educators. And the first step of doing that would be using our home language survey in your enrollment paperwork. We can throw the link to the home, I'll throw that in right now. The home language survey, you just put it in front of your students and families one time, and you would be able to determine if the students are eligible for the English screener, the access assessment. And then you would work with your, oh, I'm sending direct messages to one of our, sorry, whoever that was. You would be able to work with your school district to access services for your students who are English learners. So please work with that home language survey, get that built into your parent portal or deliver it paper copy. But if your school, for whatever reason, is choosing not to present your students with the home language survey, leave your ELP code blank. Do not say, all my students are English speakers, I'm going to put 7. If you are not following protocol and administering the home language survey and doing this with diligence, do not report English learner data, because the issue is that we have a lot of schools guessing and feeling confident, like, everybody's speaking English, I'm going to put 7. That is not doing diligence to the data that we need to build programming and services for our students who are underreported and misreported as English learners. So please don't touch that data element if you are not choosing to use the home language survey and report with accuracy on that. Good question. Okay. We're at 10:54. We're doing pretty well. So we want you to check. This is ideally you have a data team or some kind of support. I know that choice schools are a different setup, and a lot of times the support network looks very different than our public schools. I know that, okay? I worked within a choice school myself. I understand that a lot of people are wearing a lot of different hats. So I say ideally that you would have a data team, but sincerely have a backup or have 1 or 2 people that know how to use the applications, because when you get sick, I know we think that we're invincible, but we're not. Or when you leave the school for whatever reason, that staff turnover can be really painful and your data suffers, the accuracy of your data suffers. Potentially the services that you're receiving, if you're accessing title services, we want to help you, but you've got to help each other. You've got to approach this as a team approach, have somebody who knows as much knowledge or, is kind of your protege in your student reporting. Review this frequently, especially now. May 21st is coming. Check this frequently. Make sure that your data is accurate. All the enrollments are living there.
Carrie, a question again to clarify on the ELP code. If they've reported it in the past, should they start leaving it blank if they're no longer?
Good
Okay.
question. Yep. If they're not using the home language survey, please leave it blank. You will get a warning in WISEdata portal. Don't let that give you anxiety, because you'll know that you are using best practice. And Carrie both said, hey, if you're not using the home language survey, don't report ELP. And so you're going to leave that blank. You're going to acknowledge that warning. Say, yep, I know that there's no ELP code entered. It's okay. That's accurate. Oops. All right. Sorry, now I'm trying to get my presentation to work. There we go. Moving on, another piece that this is not as helpful to you for our spring snapshot, but it is here for you, and I want to discuss this with you. Under your exports tabs, we talked about using those spreadsheets to review all of the student details and all of the data that you're sending from your SIS. You can retrieve from your exports. As you scroll down that exports page, we have our WISE-extracts. Because the school year isn't over, these extracts aren't going to be all that helpful. They're more helpful for your December snapshot, but you can use your attendance absenteeism. So if for whatever reason data isn't coming over accurately for your attendance, you would be able to see that with the students who are considered chronically absent using this WISE-extracts. So these are all the spring demographics that we are going to be using. We do have a data element page, and we are working to build that tool to be more user-friendly so that you could use filters and see, you could use a spring demographic filter and see the data elements that we would be reporting. And so this is pretty redundant. Final tasks, use our WISEdata annual task checklist webpage. I'm not saying this just to say it. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. This is a really nice tool. Bookmark this thing. It's telling you at where you are in the point of the school year, what you need to be doing for student reporting. And it also gives training opportunities. Bookmark this page because I honor your time and energy and efforts, and you don't need to be scrambling saying, what are we supposed to be doing? So here we have start of your task. We also have our choice school specific start of your tasks, okay? Then you have the snapshot for the December. We talk about third Friday of September. Spring demographic snapshot. Here we are. So use this tool. It is very helpful. I think I said I was going to put it in the chat. I don't know if I did. I don't think I did. But another thing to write on your to-dos is review the WISEdata annual tasks checklist. We have something called our KBAs, knowledge-based articles. I don't think I did a good job explaining the errors and warnings. Are we ending at 11, Carol, or 11:30?
We were scheduled just for 11. If people want to stay longer, that's fine.
Okay, well, the last thing that I'm going to cover with you are the knowledge-based articles. When you have an error or warning that is within WISEdata, it will live in the validation messages screen and look like this. You can click on that code. It's a hyperlink, and it'll take you to something called a knowledge-based article, where we tell you how to resolve the error or warning. And so I don't know if you're familiar with District Deb, but District Deb will let you know what she's doing wrong and how to fix it. So this is a list of all of our KBAs and all of our recent communications that we've sent. So for example, we sent an email recently, connect with us, snapshot training opportunities and a new WISE community. When you say eyeball attendance data, just to confirm, that would be 23-24 attendance data, correct? Good question. You need some info on how to close out the school year because you've never done that before. Connect with your SIS, connect with your student information system. They can help you streamline adding exit dates, exit types, term completion indicator. I'm going to stay on and answer questions. Thank you everyone for what you're doing in your school community. Thank you for your time today. I know it's hard to get away from what you're doing in the school, but I appreciate your attendance today.
Carrie, thank you too and your team. I think this has been tremendously helpful, but if you have another question, stay on and they will be available for a few more minutes.
How do we get to that last place you showed, the WISEdata extract? Okay, so how do we get to the last place you showed? WISEdata extracts. Let me show you kind of the breadcrumbs of how you would get there. You would go to the WISEdata portal exports. So notice this is the WISEdata portal screen. You can see the tabs at the top. You're going to select exports, and then you're going to scroll down underneath the exports will be the WISE-extracts for choice schools. So I'm going to I don't know how to reply. Oh, the list of things I sent out, emails is, okay, let me throw that link. The KBAs. Yes, let me send you the link of the KBA. I'll put that in the chat there for you. Can we talk about SNSP students and why those students shouldn't be reported on in WISE? We have about 60 special studies students, while only 27 qualify for SNSP. Why wouldn't we report them on them all? Okay, so it's because of the way the federal funding is set up, and how WISEdata works with that funding and that reporting and with the school report cards. So students who have who are working within an IDEA eligible IEP that has been implemented, you would report. If they are eligible for SNSP, that does not necessarily mean they were working within that IDEA eligible IEP and it was implemented. Some of them were created, but not implemented and serviced by the public district.
Carrie, I'm going to jump in here too, just a little bit more on that. School Choice Wisconsin has been talking with DPI about this and negotiating with them. And I believe there's going to be some positive movement with some new categories potentially in the future. So as that becomes reality, we'll share that with you. But DPI is very aware of kind of the difficulty for choice schools in the SNSP world, not being able to record those kiddos with the disability status that you would think would be appropriate.
Okay, and I'm trying to reply to Becky. We administered the survey and then did access testing. When do we update the ELP code based on the 2023 testing? Great question, Becky. So it sounds like right now, this spring, you would be receiving your student access scores for the previous school year. Like, we need you, if you're receiving access scores from the fall, right now, this spring, we need you to wait for that school year to roll over and enter that in the 24-25. If you're looking at access scores from the fall, because it takes a while, you take the access in the fall, they're delivered in the spring. You're gonna wait for this school year to end, and then you're gonna enter the new ELP scores for 24-25. So every year you're working with the prior school year access scores. So right now, this school year, 23-24, you would be using the access scores that were delivered to you last spring. Yep, so wait until the 23-24 school year closes out in your SIS. Because what happens is teachers are go-getters and they want to be on top of their student reporting. And so they get their access scores in the spring and then they enter those new access scores in the current school year. Don't do that. Wait until the school year closes in your SIS and enter those access scores for 24-25. Because those are the scores that you're going to use to plan for services for 24-25. Good question.
Carrie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Nikki Lecon from Pius XI. I have two questions. One of them is just to reiterate what we were just talking about. So this May snapshot, essentially, we should still be looking at anything we got from last year's access testing. We should not be looking at all really for for purposes of the snapshot for the access testing scores.
Correct. Yep.
And then back to just for clarification for SNSP, what we're really looking, I think what I'm understanding from you is that whether they are SNSP, whether they're eligible for that, or if they're even in the special studies program, that doesn't have to do with how we are reporting them. It is just about if they have the IDEA eligible, like IEP, or I don't know if 504 testing or not.
504, nope. So it would
Okay.
have to be the IDEA eligible IEP, or if they're being serviced by the public district through an ISP.
Okay. So in theory, I think that could mean that there are kids who may, like, let's say they are ninth graders this year. Last year, they went to a public school, they had an IEP, but their parents chose to send them here, even knowing it wouldn't get serviced. But because they have that IEP, we would count them. We would need to make sure that they are in our SIS as categorized as they need to be.
Yes, that's correct. So choice students who, or if you're even an all student report card, students who worked within that IEP, the IDEA eligible IEP in a public district, you would report historically. So even if they were serviced in the 3rd grade and now they're in 5th grade, you would still report that disability that they were serviced with.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't really even have to do, it could be many, many years old. It might not be current. It's just historical data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Harry, there's another one from Nicole kind of about those SNSP kids also. So the SNSP in and of itself doesn't have anything to do with this particular code for a disability. That's what's important to understand. It's whether or not the public school has ever serviced those kids with either a service plan or that IEP.
Right. Yep. That's correct.
Nicole, does that help?
I'm sure. So the way that SNSP works, Nicole, is they may generate an IEP to find a student eligible for the SNSP program, but they may not actually implement the program for the student to be receiving services through an IDEA eligible IEP or ISP. If the services were not implemented, the IEP was not put into place because the parents chose to attend the private school, then we don't report the disability. What kind of resources can I expect for ELL that don't know any English at all? Certainly reach out to your public district, get into contact with your ESL teacher, English as a second language teacher. Talk to them about the access assessment, get that home language survey that we have in the chat in front of that family, that student. It's in many languages, the home language survey. Let me find the home language survey. I think I closed it out. So that they can take the access assessment. So you can get where they are in their English proficiency. And then from there, yeah, this is the English one. The home language survey in different languages is available here, right here. So, am I still sharing my screen? Yeah, I am. So you can see the home language survey translations that are available. And then from there, they could potentially be eligible for title services where maybe they're going to the school to receive services, or maybe the educator is sharing resources with the classroom teacher, maybe both. It's whatever that title funding and the capacity the public school can offer. Good question. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes for questions. Carol, do you think we should try to wrap things up at 11:15?
Yeah, I think so. We'll give it another just moment here, and then I think we'll close out. You can always send a help ticket. You can also probably email Carrie. Would that be appropriate? Do you want to put your
Yep,
email?
if I can't answer it, I'll throw it in the help ticket queue. We try to have a quick turnaround. With ideally, we want to answer it as soon as possible. So if I can't answer the help ticket, if I'm inundated, I throw it into our ticketing queue for our other colleagues, and someone will answer it. If it's not me, it's someone else.
Carrie, we appreciate you so much, and your colleagues. Thank you again for doing this. We'll look forward to doing it again in the fall before our next snapshot. And it was recorded, and the recording along with the slide deck will be posted and sent out to everybody also. So we'll try to get you those resources into your hands. Thank you and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.